Hello, everyone. Hello. Welcome to the Laptop Side Chat, webisode 4. I'm Joanna Burton. I'm on with Smart today. I'm just giving everybody a few minutes. I can see that people are coming into the room on the virtual panel. So I'll just give people a few minutes. I can see the numbers going up. At any time, feel free to ask a question. You can put a question in writing and I can put it to our two esteemed panelists that we have today. So the Laptop Side Chat from ID5 is just our way of keeping in touch with our clients and partners around the globe in this time when we can't see people in real life. I'm used to traveling a lot. I know you guys are too. So this is how we're coping in the meantime, just checking in, seeing how things are going in programmatic advertising with our partners, any tips for dealing with the crisis, how we're going to come out of this, how it's going to impact our industry. But as I said, do post questions. We've got some thoughts that we think might be interesting, but do post questions. So
sounds good.
Let's kick off, guys. So welcome again to everyone who's joined the webisode 4 of the Laptop Side Chat. I'm here with Smart. Would you gentlemen like to introduce yourself? Shall we start with you, Michael? Who you are and a bit of your background.
Sure. Thanks for having us, first of all. I'm excited to do this with you. So thanks to everybody at ID5 as well. And so I'm Michael Nevins. I'm Chief Marketing Officer at Smart. I've been with the company just about 3 years now. And my background's in ad tech and originally through mobile for quite some time. And eager to get into the topics today. So thanks for having us.
Excellent. Thank you. And Romain.
Hey. Hi, everyone. Very happy to take part today. Thanks for having us. And so my role currently at Smart is Chief Strategy Officer, so covering for the strategy execution, the partnerships, and product for the most part. And I've been at Smart for 13 years. So a long story.
Wow. So lots of change over the years.
Indeed.
Lots of expertise to share. So I'm also Chief Strategy Officer. I'm Joanna Burton, Chief Strategy Officer at ID5. I've been with the company almost a year, just coming up to a year, having worked previously at other SSPs, DSPs, ad networks, AOL, Microsoft, all along the way. So great. So lots of different perspectives on the call. But first of all, the obvious thing, how are you guys getting on? We've got 3 different countries, two global companies. How are you guys getting on, adapting to the not traveling, working from home, not seeing your team, not seeing clients?
It's an adjustment, but in some ways a big one, and maybe less for me in some ways. I'm based in New York City, and the majority of my team sits in Paris. So I am, and certainly many of my colleagues as well. So that's where our headquarters is. So I've been, for the last 3 years, pretty much living on video chat and starting my days very early in order to make that work, to be able to overlap with my team. So this hasn't been a huge change for me. What has been different, I think, is it's forced the team to work a little differently. They now see what my life is like a little bit, but they, I think, are all learning to be a little bit more deliberate in terms of how they communicate for the sake of collaboration, because in the past, that would happen a lot more naturally when they were all sitting in the same room. Now they have to be a little bit more deliberate about their approach. So that's been a change. I'm curious, Romain, has worked remotely as well, but lately he's been based in Paris. So I'm curious about that for him.
Yeah. No, but I mean, for me, indeed, like the last 18 months, I spent them in Paris, and so used to be among, I think we have a bit more than 110 people right now in the office in Paris. So definitely miss this level of interaction and just the good joke and everything. Yeah. Other than that, from a pure logistic point of view, we have many things in place already for people to work from home. We have a work from home policy, even in normal time, so that people can work remotely if they want or need to. So far it's going okay, and also we are lucky because a few people in the team of Michael are putting a great energy in keeping the mood up, making sure that we have opportunities to sit together and just discuss and relax and not jump from one call to the other. So it's a struggle in some ways, and just we need to keep the mood up. It's the main priority, I would say.
Yeah. Are you having a virtual happy hour?
Yeah, some of that kind of stuff. My team responsibility stems from ranges from internal comms all the way to external comms. So we're involved in a lot of the sort of internal spirit type of projects, internal events, and so, like everybody else, we've had to adjust how we operate at this time. But I'm proud, and thank you for bringing it up, Romain, that our team has done a pretty strong job of being dynamic as always, adjusting to the changes in the world and trying to make the best of a not so great situation. Let me put it that way.
Count our blessings in this time.
Yeah, but it's also interesting. I think we've. The group in France has been through transit strikes and other things like that. So we've gotten pretty good at the working from home, and we've equipped the teams well to do that. As Romain mentioned, the policies have been in place that have made it work, and I think the effort is just really around changing behavior. So more frequent and deliberate communication and things like that. I mean, because I've always had to manage a remote team. I've been very fortunate that I have a very trustworthy team. And so, they are used to working independently. They're used to starting their day without me in their midst, at least for a few hours. And, I think this forces us to, everybody to sort of operate in that mode where you can't pick up things through osmosis or what you're hearing in the room. You don't get the chance to bump into each other over coffee. So it's different. And I have to admit, I'm in Paris typically. I joke that I'm based in Paris 1 week out of the month. And so I haven't been there in a while now. And that's hard for me. I did buy myself a big chunk. I always miss Paris when I'm not there, and I love being there, but I bought myself a big chunk of Roquefort recently, a big piece, and had that shipping me. So that's helping. But I also miss the New York office. We have just south of 20 people in New York right now. And I'm used to seeing them every day and having strong, positive social interaction with that group. It's a huge piece of business for us and a high priority. So I have to admit, I'm personally missing them quite a bit right now.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Missing seeing the team, missing leaning over and saying, can I just check something?
Sure.
But then at the same time, you're lucky you can get the Roquefort. That's definitely not in my local market.
I had to seek it out. It's shipped with dry ice and everything. It was a big production.
Wow.
But
you're fancy, Michael.
I learned from Romain. I learned from I learned from Romain.
But it's certainly easier to keep in touch. I'm finding it easier to keep in touch with clients globally and doing calls before I get dressed. Don't tell anyone, and being able to work later at night and fit in other things, fitting in exercise. So that's cool. But what about from a business point of view? So we have a question from the audience from Tom Jenner, another seasoned ad tech expert. And he's saying, how is this affecting you? You guys, you have a global perspective. You can look across different countries, different verticals, different buying patterns, different client bases. So how's the business affected by the virus? Not just from a working from home and adapting to that point of view, but from a financial point of view, from from looking at revenues, looking at different advertising patterns.
Yeah. So as you mentioned, so we have a global view on that, and so there is like the common knowledge that I think has been shared quite extensively. There are a few verticals that have been heavily impacted, like obviously tourism, hotel, restaurants, automotive, and all of that. Basically, we saw from almost week one in each and every country where the confinement was deployed that those campaigns stopped, and it was very very clear, and it's still the case today. on the other hand, there were a few, let's say, nice opportunities on gaming and so on. So it's not balancing, obviously, the revenue drop, but it's there. Overall, like we see a drop in the campaign since the end of March that is significant. Luckily enough, the overall growth at Smart is compensating for part the financial impact. And then each country is a bit different. Like we saw France was heavily impacted and more than some other countries. Italy was impacted early on with a strong impact as well, but maybe a bit less. And then some countries like Germany, UK, so far for us are doing better. So there is a drop, but less significant than in other countries. So that's it, like just for the general understanding. And other than that, for us, like the priority we defined very early on in the crisis was to make sure that money could flow from one end to the other. Typically, obviously, there is a crisis. We don't know exactly how long it will last. And we have been involved in several studies, and we are looking at that very carefully. We still aim at being back to our original budget by the end of the year. And that's how we reforecasted our budget. But in the meantime, for us, it's very important that from the advertiser to the publisher, like everyone is getting paid and getting paid on time. And so our priority at the moment is really to make sure we are like letting the money flow through the SSP basically. And so it's the priority at the moment from a pure business perspective.
Yeah. We believe strongly in keeping the ecosystem healthy for the far side of this thing, and that means we use the phrase solidarity quite a bit. It's our approach. It extends from taking care of our employees. We call them Smarties, and it makes sure that we keep the ecosystem running efficiently and as efficiently as it can at this time, because this will pass. And when it does, we need our partners, our publishers, and our employees, and all of them to be healthy and able to continue both personally and on a business level.
Yeah, solidarity. I like it. And I like the chocolate reference early on. So, yeah, the global crisis, it does seem to be impacting different countries at different rates. But one thing that's clear for me when I speak with the publishers that we're integrated with around the world is they are mostly seeing, we have sports and gaming publishers as well that are down on revenue a little bit, but then the news publishers and broadcasters are just seeing huge spikes in traffic. So I think it's really important, as you said, to really help these publishers to make the most of this spike in traffic and optimize while they can. Yeah.
Indeed, and so on this specifically. So we actually, another things we observed is that for everything, let's say in-stream video and OTT, there is a spike in traffic and also a spike in spend. At least we see that this type of inventory is monetizing well. And then from a news inventory perspective, definitely a huge spike in volume. And it's also something we monitor closely. Like as we also onboard more and more traffic, like there is just the infrastructure management, which is a big area of focus. But then the issue is that news content, there are still some brand safety concern and so on. There was some communication today on the matter again, and it's something we try to address too. We released a few specific contextual semantic targeting capabilities to make sure advertisers could whether exclude or target content specifically about the virus and the crisis and the impact of all of that, basically as a move to allow our news publishers to maybe isolate some traffic that could be safer from a brand perspective and go to the market with this content.
Yeah, at the same time, we're also very eager to educate the buy side as much as we can about the relative safety of advertising within news content whenever possible. I mean, I try not to get too anthemic here and emotional, but we believe really strongly in the health of publishers and the relationship to journalism, and it's critical in my view, and I think Romain probably shares this, that advertisers not block news content altogether. And so we're certainly not alone in this thought. The ANA in the US, which represents advertisers, the IAB, I think in the UK now has also started this. There are many organizations that are trying to remind advertisers that they shouldn't. The American phrase would be throw the baby out with the bathwater. It's maybe a weird colloquialism, but I also think there's some good data out there that shows. I'm thinking of IAS, for example, and Gum have put some things out there where they've done surveys of consumers and found that, they may not click on ads more or less than they would at any other time, but they don't create any sort of negative brand association by seeing a brand show up next to COVID-19 content. And I think that's important for everybody to remember. It's yes, you need to protect your brand, but let's also protect premium publishers, the independent publishers in particular, and keep the ecosystem healthy. And obviously that has strong benefits for journalism, which I think it matters just a little bit right now.
Yeah, it really does. We really do need the journalists to hold our respective governments to account in the countries that we're all webcasting from today, but other countries as well. We need to keep journalism alive, and it's not cheap, and they're having to adapt. They've got a tougher job than we have to do right now. But there is a massive peak in viewing, and people are more online and more able to watch the laptop side chat and things like that from home. So helps to be able to reach people in this time with the advertising that works. And I think it makes sense for advertisers as well to keep communicating. I've seen some brilliant creative online especially in the last few weeks. But we have the Newsworks campaign, the Back Don't Block campaign here as well. Yeah. But I mean, that's great that you're helping, you're responding to the needs of the advertiser and the publisher. But what about from an identity and a programmatic advertising point of view? What about the granular targeting, frequency capping? How are you guys dealing with the cookie apocalypse? It's so funny, Michael. Last time I saw you in real life was that day in New York, that day that Chrome made their announcement that they plan to phase out cookies within 2 years. So how are you advising your clients on this?
Do you want to start with this, Romain?
Yeah. I mean, I can talk for it. So, I mean, like there is the crisis, there are like all the turbulence and some opportunities coming out of that, and then there is the long term and like what will remain stable. And like our conviction is that what started around the cookies, the IDs, and so on is something that is here to stay, basically, and it's really part of the long journey we are engaged on. So yeah, we saw obviously like Google. Stepping back on their same site cookie initiative, mentioning the crisis. There is also in France like some turbulence around how the local regulation could apply to the GDPR and so on, and this could be delayed. But in the long run, all of that will happen. And so what we advise and how we approach that, basically, we see really two markets emerging, and it will take time, but it will happen. There is a market that will emerge without cookie and without IDs. Typically in Europe, consent will be required, and not everyone will give a consent. And without a consent, there won't be any PII flowing through the transaction. And so we started working on tools. I mentioned contextual semantic already, but we have PG, which is a huge area of focus of us, programmatic guaranteed, and some other ways to monetize inventory programmatically without ID. And then there is this second market emerging, which is the market of programmatic advertising with an identifier, but a control identifier. And so, I mean, like disparition of third-party cookies is a necessary move in a privacy-safe environment. And so for us, it's about working with the right partners like ID5 and making sure there is some collaboration on this topic, because at the end, it has to be a collective move. And instead of each and every one of us using third-party cookies to leak some data and try to build a gray zone business in programmatic advertising, I think it's a much clever move to just be transparent about what we do with the data, collect the consent, and then leverage the right technology to share on this PII.
Yeah, I think this kind of situation shows that now more than ever we need to come together and collaborate, as you said. It's back to your point about solidarity and work together. And as you said, the rules about privacy don't change. It's really important that we put the privacy of the consumer at the heart of this conversation.
Indeed. We also, I think one interesting thing about the crisis is hard to predict how things will go, but many people have said this better than I, so I won't try to quote anyone in particular, but I'll paraphrase to say that often a crisis can help be a catalyst for change. And while it may not have a direct effect on how we deal with third-party cookies, and Google will take their time or not take their time on various things, as we've seen with the same site and otherwise, in general, I think that we may see things move a little faster, where publishers will begin to better understand the need to have closer relationships with their core audience, to develop the loyal audience, to start thinking more. We use the phrase like private gardens, where rather than just throwing stones at the big walled gardens, increasingly the publishers are working with are adopting a strategy of creating private gardens, which essentially emulate the good things about the platforms as it goes to having data-rich audience and the ability to target and do it in a way that fits within privacy regulations and also privacy morality, if that's a phrase that I can create. And so that seems to be something that may accelerate in this time. The additional traffic to many publisher sites may create an opportunity for some publishers to begin to engage those audiences, to have them sign up for newsletters or for alerts or things like that that can help grow that loyal audience and help them identify those audiences in the right way. And we think it's time for that to accelerate, of course, but perhaps this will help create that opportunity.
So with the private garden, is that publications within the same group, or is that like publisher cooperatives like we've seen? How would you define it?
It could be both. We have certainly some clients that we're working with and that are in fact cooperatives of one kind or another. More in Europe than in the US. In the US, those cooperatives have formed in the past and not been as successful, but I expect that it'll become more of a thing again soon. But also within existing publishers, there are publisher groups that own multiple properties where that audience member may be relevant across various titles or across various sites. And certainly within individual publishers, there are good reasons for them to consider everything that they can do to increase the lifetime value of that audience member, and to start to think more like retailers, or e-commerce retailers, in terms of once you have somebody in your house, how do you take really good care of them so that they never want to leave? And so, yeah, certainly within the controlled consortiums, as you mentioned, but also within individual publishers.
Yes. Yeah. Typically, we have group of publishers, or we have independent sales houses, or we have a unique application who all position themselves as private garden, in the sense that they operate some sort of a programmatic safe haven. So very controlled environment where data is not shared heavily, but very controlled, and so are the programmatic transactions that run on their ecosystem.
Yeah.
Okay.
So certainly ID, as you can imagine plays a big role in the infrastructure that's needed to do that well. So we see these two things as inexorably linked.
But that's how you see the opportunity for publishers right now, and to help to enrich their position.
Yeah. So basically, like
relationship. Sorry.
No, but basically, like we see that coming heavily in the coming decade. Like, there are 3 decades in our history. There was the first decade, that was the decade of ad serving, and we've been providing ad serving since 2001, and until 2010, it was really still the focus on the market. Then the last decade, 2010, 2020, was about programmatic, like very open market. What is coming now is a much more controlled environment. And indeed, like the change coming around privacy and user identification is linked to this need for more control.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, you certainly have a long history and a lot of experience. And can you just update, for the benefit of our international audience, the latest you were saying about the CNIL and their investigations, looking to possibly the CNIL being the data regulator in France, being asked to possibly delay?
Yeah, so on that, basically there is so obviously the CNIL is just here to enforce the GDPR, or among other tasks must enforce the GDPR, which has some impact about how programmatic transaction can flow on the market, and thus also has potential impact on the revenue of the local publishers. And so due to the fact that some publishers are under pressure with the current crisis, they are asking the CNIL to kind of postpone their memorandum that was supposed to come, I think, at the end of Q3 this year, just to make sure that the two crises, the GDPR crisis and the Corona crisis, do not overlap with each other. So it makes sense. Sorry?
Crisis apocalypse.
Yeah. And,
register that URL immediately.
So strong. So we need to maintain privacy for consumers and respect the law, but we also need to collaborate as an industry.
Yes.
The
main issue is that many mechanisms are not in place yet, and it's taking time to put all of that in place.
Yeah, and we need to continue to report the news through the time. So just a reminder to the people who've dialed in, please do drop your questions, and then I can ask them of our guests. But one interesting aspect is that you guys recently acquired DSP. So I'm wondering how that fits. You've had your years of ad serving, of programmatic, and now control data. So where do you fit that recent acquisition in?
Yeah, I think like the main at the origin of this move was this concept of the private garden we mentioned earlier. Typically, we started having more and more publishers or sales houses who wanted to execute programmatic transaction with some very added value data they had, but in a much more controlled fashion. And so without having to share those data with a third party. And so, we thought it would make sense to go for a more vertically integrated environment and offer the ability to really transact programmatically, but within a safe and private environment. So that was what put us on this track. And then so the Liquidem, the company we acquired, also resonate to us because they have a strong position in mobile, where we are also strongly positioned since years already. And also they are a way for us to enter into the native space, which is also an interesting area of development. So a lot of synergies, and we were lucky that we started the integration before the current mess, but things are doing well, and we already deliver some common opportunities. So
great. So you've got a lot of different aspects to your business, a lot to do, and as you said, you've weathered Many storms. So you're, I think, the oldest ad tech business, or one of the oldest ad tech businesses around. Like you said, Romain, you've been through different iterations. So given the current crisis, given your expertise from working from home, given what you've seen in different, on the demand side and different countries, what is your advice to publishers and to the people who've dialed in today on business moving forward? Do you think we're going to learn anything? Will it have a permanent impact? What would you advise?
Yeah, it's I don't want to skip over the fact that so many publishers are really struggling right now, and so many journalists are struggling, and we hear about furloughs and newsrooms being closed. It would be wrong to skip over that. So I need to acknowledge that right up front. These are really, really tough times. So the idea of giving advice to anybody, short-term or long-term, feels, like I should be careful. But I will. I think that, as I mentioned earlier, sometimes crisis can be a catalyst to accelerate change. And, some of the things we mentioned about publishers acting more like retailers and considering not only building and developing audience and considering the lifetime value of those audience members, rather than in the old days where we were just selling audience randomly. There is really an opportunity for the publisher brand to have a resurgence, and to, some of the data we see is that, especially within a crisis, people trust trusted media brands, and that's a really important thing for publishers to keep in mind, that this is their opportunity to shine as well. I think long term, while trying to get through this crisis, fight the fire while we're fighting it. It's important to try not to lose long-term focus if you can. And again, I don't want to be too preachy about, and skip over the things that they're contending with right now. But long-term, in that thought, revenue diversification is an important thing. If you're identifying these new users who come to your site in this time frame, if you can encourage them to sign up or at least register, or, if not, pay for a paywall, then at the very least, you have something to use long-term in your arsenal. And I hope that will be an opportunity for publishers. There are some in the space who are taking that long-term view. Meredith Publishing comes to mind. In the US, I think of Complex Magazine, for example. Complex, which, started off as a magazine focused on sneaker culture and hip hop and things like that, and now is doing a $20 million hot sauce business, because they've taken that audience and diversified their content and found other ways to diversify their revenue as a result. So I think that long-term thinking still needs to stay in place, while still taking care of our employees, and publishers taking care of their employees and their audiences as much as they can. So try not to lose focus of that long-term opportunity. That would be my advice.
Romain?
Yeah, I mean, not much to add. I think it's a very good summary. Like there are probably some tough decisions to take in the coming months and so on, and we are all in a situation where, indeed, like, it needs to be done responsibly. And like there is this topic we mentioned, solidarity, like compassion as well, like just to make sure like we are all in this together in some way, and this, I don't know how this will translate, but it's definitely something to hang on. And then there is this balance between the long-term focus on one end, because again, it's a huge distraction, but things will not disappear from one day to the other, and so on. So it's key to stick to your strategy and your plan. And on the other hand, like this quote you were looking for, Mike, maybe was Churchill. Churchill was saying, "Never waste a good crisis." So
right. Yes.
There is
that's one version of it. Yeah.
But there is this idea of indeed, like, there are some opportunities. It's also an opportunity to step back and test. Like test with ideas, and maybe we have time right now to put in place some stuff with publishers and demand partners, and and try to accelerate this transformation. But there are also many other opportunities that just could be tested at the moment. And,
that's true.
So this beginner's mind is important in this time.
Yeah, we've actually had some new opportunities come our way from new publishers who are interested to work with us because of what's going on right now. It's created some opportunities for them to re-examine their business or some of their vendor relationships, and are thinking more about what types of companies they want to partner with moving forward. So, I'm not gleeful that this is the reason why, but at the same time, I think it's healthy for everybody to think about their partner relationships and which ones are vital and who is working with them in a way that is productive for the long term. So we see some upside there too.
So we're all in it together. The crisis is unfolding at different rates in different countries and having different impacts on us all. But we all see the importance of the media. We're all talking about the value of using the time now to test, if you can. I was talking with a partner this morning about running a test because they have the opportunity, they have the brains available at the moment.
Sure.
So we're all in it together. Let's while we can't underestimate, as you said, Michael, the seriousness of the situation, it does go to show the importance of collaboration. Indeed. So I think that's probably a good note to end it, unless you want to end with a final drum roll.
No.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. Thank you for sharing all your expertise and giving the insights and the different global perspective. It's been great to chat with you.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Bye.